So when we met to talk about today, like I do with all of our speakers, I said, let's talk about who's the audience. And some are small and some are large, and then there's the ones in the middle. But everyone wants secrets of success. And you have such a great story from what you just shared to how then can we make that into something that everyone in the room can model. And so today is the takeaways of some of the things that I think that our members need to hear. So the first one is, we talked about never worry about being a woman in a male-dominated industry. See the big picture. And I think that could be the case in a lot of things. Don't get caught up in the details, look at the big picture. But can you talk about that for our members? And again, we have B2B, B2C companies, we have nonprofits.
I never in the whole time I've been working in this industry felt it was a hindrance to be a woman. First of all, the construction industry is actually an incredibly welcoming place, especially the subcontractor base. There was an advantage to being a woman in that I looked different than the other builders, and people would remember me. They remembered I wore pink Reebok high tops. That's our builder. It was a time where there was enough curiosity. But the other thing that I experienced early on was that women probably influenced or made 85% of the decisions in the family, but they weren't always the spokesperson at that time. Today, it's pretty equal, but so no one was really hearing them and really talking to them and asking them what will make your life better with your home. So it wasn't as much about home building as it was about people building and understanding the needs, the missing ingredients and what was happening. And that has been a constant theme throughout, because I genuinely care. I care about people. I want them to live a better life in their house. I want them to be successful financially through this house. So I want to build homes that are inheritable. It matters to me. So we that became kind of the spirit of our company. My husband never wanted to be the spokesperson, and so he welcomes that I'll do that. And he recognized also we can be the best we can be in construction, but we have to care, we have to have a soul. So I've kind of brought back little pieces of things I did when I was working with the environmentalists and the photography and the environmental world. When I first became a developer, I have to say I felt a little guilty about it because development wasn't very environmental. And when I was president of the Home Builders Association, we had this opportunity to engage in smart growth and to engage in green building, and that was the year 2000. So nobody in the building community at that time cared about either of those things. But we were able to actually build something that had legs. We, by partnering with South Face Energy Institute, which was such a wonderful company to have in Atlanta and such a gift to the industry, we were able to build a program that made sense, that builders themselves got to say, well, this is too expensive and this is worth it. And so it was actually a workable program. And then it went on to include houses, light commercial, neighborhoods, and to this day is thriving in the whole Southeast, and has been a model for the country.
So let's go on to the next thing. So I'd like you to share just a little bit, like maybe a minute or two, on the kind of home you build, like the style of the home, like what you're known for.
Okay.
Because I know what you did for us, which was a craftsman style farmhouse, which we loved. Is that what you do, and can you share that? So because everyone here has their talent and their unique selling proposition, and so what is the home that you're doing?
Well, first of all, we focus on more than the home. We develop neighborhoods so that we can create a place that has space between the homes, that has private gardens, neighborhood gardens. It's walkable. We have in Vickery and Woodstock, we built downtown city centers in Alpharetta, downtown city center, so that it supports a lifestyle. And we really got that through our children. We lived on a farm, and we always thought that's exactly where we wanted to raise our children, on a farm. But we also, before they were born, had been going down to Seaside, or it wasn't Seaside at that time, we'd been going down to Grayton Beach. Well, when Seaside came about, we went there too, considered even building there, but it's when we took our children to Seaside that the light bulb came on. Within 10 minutes, they were in a pickup game with a pickup basketball game with kids. My son asked if he could go to the market and buy the food for breakfast, and he came back with like healthy choices. We were like, whoa. And he was so excited because it was Modica Market. Miss Modica worked there. He didn't have enough money for the breakfast, so she said, go on and just bring it back later. He thought that was amazing, and he couldn't get the money and take it back fast enough. And what I noted was, oh my gosh, we grew up this way, and now they can't. Living on a farm, their friends were imported. Every event in their life was planned. There wasn't anything spontaneous unless they wanted to play in the pasture. So we said, this just isn't the way we should be raising these kids. So we decided to build a neighborhood that would give them those things, that they would have pickup games, that they could walk to school, that kids would gather together, and there was people watching, neighbors kind of keeping an eye on other kids. It was just a support mechanism for families. So that's why we built Vickery, and that's why we started focusing more on rebuilding Woodstock downtown, like where existing city centers already existed, and we could just add to that. We started doing a lot more of that, and then today we also build in the city where there's already infrastructure and services and that walkability. So the house is a lot of different styles of house, but very focused on design. We're a design-driven company. That matters to us. And we've sort of edited where we should provide the design and where the customer should bring their inspiration and vision to the process.
So in terms of see the big picture, I wanted to go back to that. Your takeaway on that for everybody here that gets caught up in the details, can you say one thing about that, about the big picture?
I think in the context of that, it's like really what matters most at the end of the day is staying focused on what your strength is and how does that serve the customer. The customer has to be the center of everything, but what is it that you can provide that's unique to you that will serve your clients in a meaningful way.
And we talked about that you can't be the best at everything but need to be the best at something.
I'll tell you about a big mistake we made at one point. You tend to follow what you think is the path to success based on the influence and input of others, of just your industry. So we were growing and growing and growing, and at one point we decided we should buy into this new technology. We went to Seattle and bought a program where we would build everything on paper before we built it in the field. So we were going to save so much money because you would know every nail and stick and it was a disaster for us because we are design driven. We don't do the same thing twice. And that system was based on cookie cutters. I mean, you had to build the same thing over and over, or you had to spend as much time building it on the computer for one house. It just wasn't efficient. And the hardest thing for us to do, because we spent a lot of time and a lot of money trying to make that work, the hardest thing to do was toss it. But we knew if we believed in what we were meant to do, a design-driven company for the client, it wasn't a tool for us. So
the takeaway on that is can't be the best at everything, but need to be the best at something.
Yes, so I think it's a matter of really honing in on what what is your mission? What are you best at? And we had to accept we were not operationally excellent. We're just not, but we are design excellent, and we provide a service of that design. We can't be bad operationally, or we go out of business too, but we can't be the best operationally if we are focused on constantly inventing and creating and exploring new design.
We talked about approaching your clients and trade partners as family.
So this one has been, you spend 40 years. I actually still work with the same plumbers that I hired 40 years ago. They are family by now. And my heating and air contractor, I started with a company. His son took over the company, and now I'm working with his grandsons. These are people that we've grown together. We are not the easiest company to work for because we don't do the same thing over and over, and we don't let you do it however you want to. The design has to be right, and we'll tear things down and do it again. And yet, the trade base that we have likes being there. They too want to challenge themselves. They want to be better at something. They like being proud of their work just like we are. So I can't thank them enough because they really go the extra mile to figure out new things to do and new products to try, and it's complicated, and they're willing to take that on.
So in the takeaway on that is in maintaining that kind of relationship and treating them like family, you see them often, brainstorm with them, get good ideas, you share. I mean, that's the kind of stuff.
Yeah, from the very beginning, like when my husband first joined the company, a couple of my trades came and said, "Pam, I don't like that new guy you hired." And I thought, "Oops." And I realized I had been spoiling them probably a lot. But, I want them to be successful. And you have to prepare you have to be ready for them to be successful. You can't waste their time. You have to have the materials there. You have to be ready when you say you're going to be ready. You have to have a clean job site. You have to enable them to be their best, and they'll give you back the same, and we make a great team.
You said you can't just do the same thing over and over again. I think that's really important for our group here because sometimes we get caught in the same thing over and over. Right. So what's the takeaway on that?
It's risky, and I think that you can, when you build this team that kind of thinks alike, and that happens over time, then we can adapt and switch and change a lot quicker and easier because we all speak the same language. I've had my painter call me and say, "Pam, I think this is noted wrong because I just don't think you would have put this color here." And it's like, thank you for knowing me that well and for being and caring that much. You just get that rhythm, and you have to kind of have that in order to be doing something new all the time, which we are always doing something new and something different because each location has a personality, has special needs that you want to serve both from a design standpoint. It could be historic architecture that you want to pay respect to. It could be many, many things, but we want to when we go into a neighborhood, it's usually now a historic existing neighborhood, and we want to leave what we add to that neighborhood. We want that to be as good or better than what was already there.
And then the last thing is whatever your unique selling proposition is, be consistent with it, be authentic with it, and be focused on the ROI. And I think that's a good way to close. So what's the takeaway on that?
Well, I'll share a little story because where in the construction industry and probably in general, but where I probably learned some of the most about not just business but balance and business and life was with the Great Recession. Because that was at a time where the theme was leverage, leverage, leverage. Everybody was borrowing as much as they possibly could, and banks were throwing as much money as possible at you. We had 100 employees, 13 neighborhoods. We were feeding this big machine. And then one day, that shut off. And I realized that it wasn't just business then. It was like my business had become my identity. And it's like, well, who am I now? I mean, I can't pay my bills. This is disgraceful. This is just, it was so awful. And after I kind of cried in the corner for quite a while, I realized that was a bad cycle I was caught in. I was so anxious and worried and mad and sad, and it was doing nothing for me. I couldn't fix it. And our industry is about fixing things all the time. We have problems every day, and we can fix them. And this wasn't something that could be fixed. So I took a minute to kind of show myself a little love and kindness in a very difficult time to do that by being more than my job. So I spent time with my family and friends. I took African drum lessons. I took swing dance classes with my dad. I took cooking classes. My husband and I started doing mini triathlons, and talk about a community that's loving. When everybody's high on those that exercise, what are they? Dopamine. Yeah, everybody's so kind and loving. It's a great place to be. And I realized during that I was not my job, that I was more than my job, and the person that I was had enabled me to be good at my job, and I could do it again. And we did that, but it was a hard lesson, but it was a good lesson. And I also thought the whole time, I want to remember this, I want to hold on to this, I want to not lose this importance, because it makes you better at what you do. So we did come back, and that's a whole nother story we don't have time for, but it was one of the greatest lessons I've learned.
Any questions that anyone have for Pam? Okay, we have Russ and we have Jeff. So Russ?
If you want to, no one's going to.
And you answered the first part of it, which was you've been in business long enough to go through multiple recessions, but the last two, the Great Recession and the post-COVID environment for builders have been really challenging, especially new home builders.
Yes.
And I was just going to ask what you learned from those, of the lessons of the toughness of it, and what you took out of it that you're using.
Yes. Well, I answered from a personal standpoint. From a business standpoint, something that we did, we had encouraged our builders to get their own builder's licenses before the recession. Some did, some didn't. After the recession, there was no work for a minute, and then there was a little work, slowly building. And the way we put our company back together was everyone was an independent contractor. We had worked with independent contractors forever, but now, because it was personal to think I had affected people's lives and livelihood because they lost their jobs. So by having everyone be an independent contractor, if we ever have a slow time, they can go take a remodel job or build for someone else or take a design job. And it just it's not only been good from a business standpoint, but they're all entrepreneurs. So now they get to flex their own entrepreneurial spirit in a little bit safer haven where they don't have to do everything. And it's really been a fabulous model for us.
This is a great story for a lot of our members here, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, excellent. Jeff, you have a question? Here, let me give you a microphone. You guys, can you pass this down and then pass it back? Thank you. Or Jeff, you can stand up here. And
Stand up there?
no, stand right
Oh, okay. I think the word you were looking for was endorphins when you exercise. But my question is, with most people focused on the environment and environmental health, I was wondering if it's mandated either by municipal or state governments to set aside a certain area in these communities for nature.
Yes, there's every neighborhood. Well, I say yes. There's always workarounds, but for the most part, you have to preserve an arborist make inspections. Why I say not completely, you can take a tree down and pay compensants for that tree. So it really, but there is a process in a plan and process to try to help that. Sometimes some historic trees just aren't going to make the process, no matter what you do, depending on how they are. But the city will say if a tree is diseased and dying, and they'll tell you to take it out, and they'll tell you when something's worth saving. Mm-hmm. And just if you are doing good placemaking, you want those places. People need nature, and they need it in the city just as much, even if it's a smaller amount. So it's very important, but the regulation is kind of good and bad. It works most of the time. And then you also have, in any zoning, you have citizen input, which can be bloody. I'll just tell you, that's one thing I'm thankful my husband does, because it's really a painful process. But it's a good process. It should happen. It's just sometimes it's not as productive as it could be.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.